Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. Come to you, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is John Mark Tolley. Joining me today, as always, are my co-host,
Garrett K. Jones.
And
Ryan Karasik, representing the watchful eyes of the Empire.
Yeah, indeed. Also joining us today, he is the co-host of the Inflatable Falcon, which we still agree is the greatest name for a Star Wars podcast. And Bounty Hunting Across the Galaxy with Todd and Ken, and of course the host of the Rambling Star Wars Fan, Mr. Ken Bishop. Ken, welcome to the show.
I think we lost him.
We can't hear you. Nope. Can't.
I think the mic got disconnected.
Oh, no.
There he is. There he is.
We're on the Inflatable Falcon. Yes, it's good to be with you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, well, it's good to have you. It's good to have you. Well, as we get started, let's get right into it. And we had Disney had their big D23 race.
Yes, they did.
Recently. And we saw a bunch of stuff, one of which was the first teaser for Skeleton Crew, or as I'm calling it, Goonies in Space.
That sounds about right.
Fairly accurate.
I mean, I watched them like, this is Goonies in space. Not that that's a bad thing. Goonies is a great movie, but this is Goonies in space.
Yeah, it is most definitely.
What were all your guys' initial thought of what we saw? We didn't see a lot, but
I didn't make the Goonies connection until you said it, and now I can't not see it.
Yeah.
But I'm that generation. I was excited to see Goonies in the theater. I saw it 3 times in the theater when it came out, and I'm okay with it. Yeah,
with or without the octopus.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say without. But I am 50, so I may have just forgotten it. I've taken a blow to the head or two in the interim.
Jumping off pirate ships and such.
Well, I was in the Navy.
My thought about it was I was a little floored that we saw a like modern suburbia type landscape.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. Yeah, that was very unusual. Like, it seemed very modern, like modern day Earth.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, this can't be a version of Coruscant, not with all the natural landscape around.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where that takes place at, because it has to be a core world, because it's just too nice to be an Outer Rim world. So it has to be I'd say it has to be one of the core worlds, or maybe the New Republic is setting up and trying to do colonization.
I was happy to see Nick Frost.
Maybe they're finding these worlds and colonizing them.
It brings up. I'm always curious when they say a planet is like some backwater. Like Tatooine is always described as some backwater Outer Rim planet. Everything in the galaxy happens on Tatooine. Like, it's really not that backwater.
Yeah.
What happens on Coruscant? Like, oh yeah, sure, the Jedi massacre, but everything happens in the Outer Rim.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like when they introduce a new show. I was really I got punked out a little bit prior to Solo coming out. I used to make reference to, I don't know how rough Han Solo's childhood was. Like, was he growing up in the mean streets of Corellia? And they say that phrase in the movie. Like, they describe it as the mean streets. Hey, okay, mean streets, sure. Didn't have an awareness of how rough it was, but so they didn't name the planet, am I right?
They have not. No, they did not name. I'm sure they will at some point. And
Ken, were you at D3? I heard.
No, I wasn't, unfortunately. I was
Just
just
tracking it.
yeah, keeping track of it remotely. And one of the things I think is cool about this show is, yeah, you see that suburban type planet, but that's not where the story is going to take place. They're going
No
to start there and then go off on this
adventure.
wild adventure,
Yeah, yeah.
complete with some creatures that look like they came out of Captain EO.
Yeah, there definitely feels like a little bit of a Captain EO vibe from what I remember of that presentation. And it's weird, like some of it feels like, especially like, I mean, I know we keep harping on the suburban landscape, but like the thing that strikes me is it almost feels like new Star Trek. Just a little bit. And with the the bright, shiny, the new atmosphere about it. Everything looks clean, and it's kind
Which
of
at that time in the galaxy's history, you think that must be the only planet that's still clean.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Well,
I think maybe what
mined into extinction by now.
I think maybe what Garrett's and I could be wrong is that this is just a facade. That underneath the surface that they're putting on this clean
No, I mean, I'm not talking about
facade
a
to
facade.
show like the Republic is saying everything is hunky dory, everything is hunky dory, nothing to see
No,
here.
I'm not.
But underneath,
That's
it's not necessarily like that.
It's
Oh,
all
no,
a
I was-
simulation, man.
I was getting at more of the idea that the everything just looks fresh and brand new, not like it's a veneer or anything like that, or it's covering anything up. It just usually when we see elements within the Star Wars universe, regardless of it being as as the pristine grounds of Theed Palace or anything like that, there's always a quality of things being lived in, and everything in this opening sequence of the trailer feels a little prefab, very like it kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid and I moved into when we moved back to California in '89, and it was this brand new subdivision, all these manicured lawns that have just been put in as this new layout with homes and people moving in for whatever reason. And that's just the vibe I'm getting. I'm very curious to see how it goes. But I don't know. I don't have any opinions of it, good or bad at this point.
I think
Now,
they're
do you think it's
intentionally
interesting
obtuse
that-
when they, intentionally obfuscatory when they put out new content like this. Just enough to see, like it's so hard to judge. I even for a while there, I wasn't even watching trailers. Like I'll see it when it comes out. Like I don't want to see what you think I want to see.
Right. Now, do you think I think it's interesting that after a couple of shows like with, shows like Andor and this last Star Wars show they did, which seemed to be more adult geared towards more adults, to do a show that seems very much geared towards a younger audience. Like I showed Lily and my daughter, and she is super excited for this show.
How old is she?
She's 9.
Okay,
almost 10.
Mine's 6. We're still working our way towards Star Wars. She still likes lightsaber fights, but not so much about watching the shows.
Yeah, no,
what did you?
I think this could be that kind of story that's after the Jedi adventures.
Yeah.
To your point, gearing towards younger audiences with that whole idea of it's an adventure with kids who meet pirates, who meet a mysterious Jedi, who meet a robot who becomes their friend. One-eyed robot. I don't know if his name is Willie or not, but if we're gonna play up the whole Goonies thing.
W1773, thank you. That's who is voiced, by the way, by Nick Frost, so I'm loving that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that before. I think Nick Frost is fantastic because we've had Simon Pegg in Star Wars now, so it's nice to have the duo complete.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you? I was looking at the cast because I always like to hear where voices are coming from. Apparently, one of the characters is played by Ryan Kira Armstrong, who is Charlie McGee in the new Firestarter, And as a Stephen King fan, I'm happy with that. Yeah, I was like a crossover. Ken, I don't know if you if you have a child of this age, but I've been watching a lot of Peppa Pig lately.
Now our boys are a little bit older than that.
Okay, fair enough. So if you watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, it's an excellent ghost story on Netflix. The stereotypical spooky British girl in that show who shows up out of nowhere and says very solemnly, "Everything will be perfectly splendid." Very creepy, and same voice actor as Peppa Pig, which really puts a different angle on Peppa Pig. So it's nice to see that. And also Carrie Condon, who is the voice of Friday in the Avengers movies. I think it's a great cast. And of course, Jude Law. What are you going to do?
Yeah. That's why my wife is excited about this, mainly, is because she likes Jude Law.
Yeah.
Really, I'm excited because Julia White's going to be back on TV.
Hey.
I have no comment on that.
Come on, he's Urkel, man.
I do share one aspect of Urkel's background in that, maybe two, in that I am a bit of a geek, and I have once or twice had to ask people if I was the one who had done that. Well, it's going to be
having Vane back as a pirate.
I'm easy to please with new Disney content. I'm mad I have to wait till December, but I loved The Acolyte. I didn't care for the Resistance cartoon, but that's just because I'm not invested in those characters or that time frame.
Yeah.
So not that it's bad content, it's just not content that grabbed me or anybody I know, but that's okay. I'm not going to complain. But I'm stoked. I think Disney's really hitting it out of the park. The only thing I don't like about Disney's live action television series is I feel that, as we discussed this last week, Ken, I'm interested in your thoughts. I think the television series releases have taken some of the occasion out of a Star Wars release.
They've tried hard to bring that back. So, for instance, with The Acolyte, with I think the last season of The Mandalorian, they would put the first 2 episodes in the theater. So my wife Heather and I and our friend
we didn't have any option of that around here.
Yeah, so we got they weren't in all theaters, but we got to go to a theater maybe an hour away from us that had
nice.
the first 2 episodes in the theater, and it was really fun. And I think they were attempting to do that. And I think one of the if I had to say it was a problem, please know that I'm in the I Love All Star Wars fan club.
Us too.
But in terms of a problem with the episodic nature of television is it gives a whole 7 days for folks to just to dump on it without even knowing what's coming yet. They're already filling in the blanks before they've seen anything. And sometimes that gets louder than the actual episode when it comes out.
I have a theory about that, Ken. Most of the current generation of Star Wars fans grew up knowing everything there was to know about Star Wars. If you were born after 1985, from the time you started watching Star Wars, you had all the content. You had everything you knew. Like all 3 movies were out, and you get 20, 30 years of source books and role-playing games and video games. Like all of this stuff it's just written down. You just got to go find it. And then when the prequels came out, we didn't know exactly how it was going to happen, but we knew what it was going to happen. We meet young Anakin Skywalker. We meet a beautiful woman that he makes eye contact with. They're going to have kids. There's not a lot of mystery to it. And with the new stuff, as you say, like people don't have Wikipedia to go look up and see, what's going to happen? Who's this guy? Who's Wilro Hood? And I think it kind of spoiled us. It's a weird way to have a property be released. But meanwhile, like I didn't have a theater to go to. That's awesome. I didn't even know they did that. I'm sitting here in costume at 3 a.m. waiting for the new episode to go out. Like, yeah, I go to the premiere.
The premiere in my living room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's pivot here a little bit and get to our main topic of this week. This is week 3, so it is kind of just a free-for-all topic, but I decided that we're going to be talking about, for each of us, what makes a good Star Wars story. What are the elements? What is needed? And since he's our guest, Ken, what are some of the things to you that for you makes a good Star Wars story?
So there's a couple things that come right to mind. One of them is a story that involves distinct choices. So if I go down this path, that's towards the light side. If I go down this path, it's towards the dark side. So when we look at, Star Wars way back since the 70s, almost all of the stories have had those connections in there. The individuals who at any moment in time could swing one way or the other and have, either powerfully positive consequences or completely damaging consequences. And seeing how those choices not only impact themselves, the characters, but their friends and then the larger universe. So those are some, I think, some of the key elements of Star Wars stories.
Yeah.
And you can even see it in the Acolyte or Star Wars Resistance or, Book of Boba Fett for that matter.
Mm.
How about you guys?
Well, Garrett, why don't you take? You're the resident author here.
Well, I think that, Ken, there are some elements I would agree with you on. Having distinct choices being made, but I think just from a writing perspective that the choices have to make sense. The motivations need to be very clear for the characters. And that's one of the things I feel has been decreasing over the last few years. The characters are doing things simply because the script is telling them to, as if it's been predestined, which in scripted television or scripted film that happens. But in good storytelling, the characters have agency. They have the ability to wrestle with the consequences, good or bad, of whatever choice that they're going to make. And it feels like they're hitting these plot beats without the characters fully understanding the consequences for whatever decision they're choosing to make. It's just like they're pointed in the direction and they're following in that order because the story needs it to happen. There's no pushback. There's no resistance. And then you have characters who have a lot of things just come naturally to them. Whether they're antagonists, protagonists, what have you, and it doesn't feel like things are as earned. I mean, you take a look at, for example, the original Star Wars film, and as codified by the hero's journey as it is, and it does hit those plot beats, but it does so in a way where there's consequence for the characters. And you take a look at Luke Skywalker, and we kind of touched on this last week when we were discussing the importance of Owen and Beru. But Luke starts off as someone who wants to sign up for the Imperial Academy. Like, he's willing to go into the Empire and
eager to.
Yeah, he was eager to go into the system, regardless of whatever travesties that they were committing. And he knew that, he probably heard of it. He saw some of the oppression that the stormtroopers were doing in Mos Eisley or Mos Espa or any other locations on Tatooine. And that's just a microcosm of the larger galaxy. But he was willing to go in there regardless. And it's not until things hit home, literally, that he makes the decision that he needs to go with Obi-Wan, that he needs to forego whatever his original plans were. I mean, it's the classic point of he is invited to go on the quest and he rejects it. It's called he's rejecting that call to adventure, and he takes it upon himself later on to make the decision. He sees the consequences of what saying no looks like. People die. But in the stories that we're seeing sometimes more recently, especially like looking at Rise of Skywalker, for example, the guys here know I'm not a big fan of J.J. Abrams by any means. Don't get me wrong. I have watched through the Star Trek movies that he has filmed. I've watched some of the other content that he's put together, but
I'm sorry, that's so carefully put that you say that he has filmed. It's not even his movie. It's a movie he.
Well, and that's just it. Is that, like, while he himself is a fan of the franchise, like nothing he does is original content. It is building off the story of somebody else in a way that doesn't feel genuine.
You never forgive him for Vulcan, will you, Garrett?
It's not even that. It's I won't forgive him for literally telling audience members that he wasn't doing a remake of Wrath of Khan, and then turns out he was doing a remake of Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock all at the same time. But my point is that he's all flash and no substance. And so when he throws out these MacGuffin things, or he throws out these questions like, how did Maz Kanata get a lightsaber? And the question doesn't get answered, it leaves the audience really, really let down.
They even lampshaded it. She said it's a story for another time, but not really.
Yeah, and they never get to that story throughout the rest of the trilogy.
Well, look how long we had to wait to find out about the Clone Wars, though. You know, they mentioned the Clone Wars in 77, and
we're all stoked for the Maz Kanata series coming in 2028.
I've actually joked around saying that would make a great animated show. You know, a nice animated anthology show that all start off in the castle and they go out on these wacky adventures, because she's been around for so long. And one of the, I think, you know, going back to this topic that we're talking about, one of the big challenges is, you know, we are, for lack of better words, amazingly powerfully spoiled. I mean, there was big gaps in time between the original trilogy and the prequels, and you know, we had the EU
83 to 99. It was paperback books and role playing games.
So stories,
terrible Atari games
that we made up with our action figures and character sheets. But now, because we have, you know, content coming to us at such a fast pace, that we sometimes overlook all of the things that did come before it. And even, you know, you mentioned that some of these story beats seem forced. I mean, you could say the same thing for Jar Jar, you know, granting Palpatine, you know, extra powers. You know,
Patriot, that's what.
Yeah, let's go with that, Brian. Let's go with that.
I do like the Jar Jar as a Sith theory, but not so much the part of it where he's supposed to be Palpatine's master.
He's even got a Lego figure out now.
I like that Dark Falcon set looks great. My wife and daughter just got me the Imperial Throne Room Lego set, but it's the only Legos I got. I bought the light kit. It's on the shelf. I'm done with the Legos until my daughter starts building.
Well, one thing for me that I like in a Star Wars story is, and you really see, I don't know if you see it so much now, but you saw it during the original trilogy, and you really saw it in the Clone Wars, is this making it feel like those old style serials, like especially with the Clone Wars, where you would have the voiceover, you know, introducing you to the story. I love that whole concept of Star Wars. I've joked before with some people that the Clone Wars make a whole lot more sense if you look at them as Republic propaganda pieces. That these are newsreel footage that are being shown throughout the galaxy in like hollow theaters before like a movie starts. It's like, our brave soldiers out in the galaxy.
Here, Coruscant's youngest patriots muster up to fight the rebel resistance.
Yes, yeah. If you look at the Clone Wars as Republic propaganda pieces, it makes a whole lot more sense.
Keep it up, kids. The droids are on the run.
Yeah. But also, so I mean, I like the idea of, especially in the original Star Wars, of you know who the good guys are, you know who the bad guys are. That kind of strict difference between light side and dark side. I don't necessarily know how you feel about like where they try and blur the lines. Where like, is this guy really a good guy or is he a bad guy? That was one of the things that I really liked about the original trilogy. Is there was no gray. There was the good guys, they're over here, there's the bad guys, and they're over there.
Well, you did have Han.
Yeah, Han was a good guy. I
well,
mean,
yeah,
yes,
Han became a
He's a
good,
criminal.
but
He-
he's
He
the
murdered
worst
someone at a
in the world.
bar.
He really is.
I mean, literally he is the Jack Sparrow of the Star Wars galaxy before Jack
Well
Sparrow.
put.
was a thing.
Ken,
But,
I always joke that we never see Han and Boba Fett are perfect nemesis because we never see either of them be good at the thing that they are
They're
supposed
supposed to be
at.
good at. They're bad at being good or good at being bad, or one of
That
those two.
never hunts anybody on screen. I made it.
But-
I know one of the Boba Fett actors. He played Boba Fett in the New Hope Special Edition. And I made him a pie chart of Boba Fett's screen time, and it's like 4% bounty hunting, and then like 18 being a petulant child, just getting shut in a box by Asajj Ventress. I'm bad.
How about a little bit of flirting? He
Sorry to
did
interrupt.
some flirting there in Jabba's sail barge.
Yeah.
no, I've often joked that in the original trilogy, he has something like maybe 5 lines of dialogue, one of which is a Wilhelm scream.
I will disagree though, John. Going beyond Han Solo, that there are gray areas and good storytelling throughout the Star Wars franchise. Because if we go back to Knights of the Old Republic and we look at probably one of the biggest twists of any story in the franchise, the reveal that the protagonist that you're playing as turns out to be Darth Revan all along is huge. And it is a massive upset for players who had no idea going into the game, because like I remember in high school people were playing through that game, and I mean, you know, this is back when Star Wars wasn't as popular as it has been in the last 20 years, and like people were playing the game, and all of a sudden I had people, you know, sitting there going, holy crap, I've been the bad guy the entire time, had no clue. Like people were losing their stuff over this, man. It was a big
I didn't get to go in unspoiled like that. I couldn't finish that game. I don't like a game that's on rails that much.
Yeah, it had a lot of tension.
Yeah. What about you, Brian? What do you consider to be a good Star Wars story?
It won't be any surprise to anybody who knows me that I think what makes a good Star Wars story is, of course, Figure and Dan and the Modal Nodes. You're not going to get anywhere without the band. No, honestly, I kind of go the opposite of you, John Mark. I like an unexpected deviation from norm. Which is not to say that I find that lacking in the original trilogy. I absolutely agree. The original trilogy is just like the old 1920s serials: bad guys in black hats, white guys in white hats, or good guys in white hats. But I like an iconoclast. I like challenging the norm, and a lot of people don't remember this or weren't alive for it. But in 1980, it was a surprise that Darth Vader was related to Luke. I mean, unless you spoke German or Dutch, in which case you probably saw it coming. But I like when Ahsoka is invited to return to the Jedi Order and does not. I like it when Cassian Andor has to kill his informant because he's inconvenient. I like that, to Garrett's point about Luke seeing stormtroopers being brutal in Mos Eisley. Well, we see worldwide, law enforcement officers overstepping their boundaries, and good people still join the force. We see war crimes committed, and good people still enlist in the military. I've mentioned here before, one of my favorite in the new novels is Lost Stars, because we see 2 people enlist in the Empire, not because they want to twirl mustaches and brutalize villagers, but because they think the Empire is a good thing. I've been reading, and I cannot recommend this book enough. I've been reading The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, and it talks a lot about how the galaxy as a whole, the citizens saw the Empire as like, a lot of them just believed it. Unless you're at the end of the barrel of a gun, not everybody knew that the Empire was being, and they were atrocious to a variety of people. But I like that sense of, I think they went too far with it with DJ. DJ was just like, I thought he was, to use Garrett's phrase, I think he was just doing what he was doing because the script said to. But I like the gray area of good people doing good things for a bad reason. And I think that's interesting. I like having to guess where someone is going. Seeing Palpatine in episode 1 is a perfect example, because I knew where he was going, and most of us did, if you recognize that last name or that actor, for crying out loud. But seeing him as this avuncular, kindly, beloved and respected guy, and knowing you are already a Sith Master, is a fascinating moment for me. There's a line in that Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire that said Palpatine's control, his rank, kind of kept him off the Jedi's radar. The Jedi were looking for someone who wanted to take over the galaxy. They weren't looking for somebody who already had.
Well, and with that said, we all know that Star Wars has a lot of fantasy elements to it. Space wizards and laser swords and things like that. And
gravity always goes one way in space.
No matter what ship you're flying in, or
Yeah.
those sort of things. And there are some wonderful connections to lived history. So it's recognizable. We can analyze our world history through the lens of these characters in Star Wars without the harsh true reality of the horrors that have come from it.
That is one thing, and you hit on something right there that I think for me is a big one for any Star Wars show, that has come out or will come out. It has to feel familiar. Like, whether I see a lightsaber or not, like Mandalorian is a perfect example of this. Before I even saw The Mandalorian and that first scene in that cantina, it felt familiar. Like, I didn't have to see a guy in a Mandalorian suit or a lightsaber or anything, but just seeing that set and seeing what it looked like, I'm like, okay, this looks like Star Wars. It has to feel like lived in, and like this is a real life place, and not necessarily like this fanciful place that I know could never exist somewhere anywhere in the galaxy. It has to feel familiar to me.
I liked a moment that rung true for me like that in the Mandalorian is when we see the Mandalorian's first ship. He's got that closet of carbonite slabs, like that's. I clearly somewhere in the bounty hunting community, someone's like, "That's a great idea, guys! Check what Fett did," and like he's got them on a rack. I think he's got like 4 or 5 of them. Just like, which guy is it? I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
like those hanging shells in a library.
This is a Star Wars bar.
Yeah.
I think going back to the idea of things being lived in is important. The other thing is having like internal rules that are well established, where characters and society or other cultures or whatever constantly like there's a consistency across the board. I mean, like when I'm writing, whether I'm writing something in science fiction or something in fantasy or whatever, one of the first things that any writer does is they establish the way the world works. It's one of the first things that needs to be established so that the reader or the viewer, whatever you want to call them, it can easily identify, here's the set of parameters in which this world functions, whether it's a world full of multiple planets in a singular galaxy, or it's just a region on a map split into different fiefdoms for fighting for freedom against a dark force like Sauron. There's an internal logic that exists, and I think what happens that can deviate and cause people to become disillusioned is probably the best word for it, or at least disinterested at the very least, is that when those internal logics, those internal rules stop being followed. And there are it doesn't happen all throughout, especially throughout the franchise, but there have been more recent moments where things have been quickly retconned and it becomes worrisome. It's like writers haven't paid attention to what has come before, whether it's because they're fans in name only or they're not even fans at all. Case in point, Rian Johnson is a good example. Like, he's never watched Star Wars, had no intention of ever watching Star Wars. He's not even a fan of it. And he steps into the responsibilities of a director and screenwriter, and some of the internal logic of The Last Jedi doesn't play friendly with the internal logic of the rest of the franchise. And so that creates some deviation that people get upset with. I mean, if for example, like, don't get me wrong, the probably one of my favorite sequences from the entire film, The Last Jedi, is where Holdo goes to light speed against the Dreadnought. I thought that was a really cool, very well crafted scene. But the ramifications, the implications of that are astronomical. And it's like, if this was something that could be done, why hasn't someone built a rocket or a missile or some kind of weapon that specifically targets a ship and ignites an FTL drive and splits the cosmos in the path of that ship? They could destroy whole fleets. Whereas you look at sci-fi writers like Craig Allenson, who did he's done the Expeditionary Force series, and they make an internal rule that one of the types of warfare that is illegal for all these species is you can't use nukes. You can't use biological warfare. You can use rail guns, but you can't use these other things. And there's an internal logic that carries over, and you see what the ramifications are when those rules are broken, those rules of engagement. Here we have a cool visual, and don't get me wrong, it's a very cool visual in Star Wars, but it breaks the established rules of what you should be doing.
Yeah, but I think Star Wars throughout its history has had those moments of quote unquote rule breaking. I mean, you could put Cortosis in there as an example, because up until when it came out in I, Jedi, in the novel I, Jedi, there was nothing that really could be used to defend against a lightsaber. There was Cortosis was pre-Beskar. So these things have happened in Star Wars history, and I think it's a big stretch to say any of the makers of Star Wars aren't fans of Star Wars. I think they take what they've been given, they take what they have seen, and then expand on it and add to the lore instead of deliberately trying to break it. I think that's
and that's fine if they're wanting to add to the lore, but like Rian Johnson clearly made it. He was very verbal about it, about not being a fan, and he just wanted to deconstruct Star Wars.
I don't remember him ever saying he wasn't a fan. If anyone said he wasn't a fan of Star Wars, it was the guy who did Andor. And look what he created. He created something that lots and lots of people loved.
Garrett, would you see? I hadn't thought of it that way with the Holdo maneuver. I saw it as just innovation. Like any act of war, any use of a weapon or use of multi-purpose technology, there's got to be a first time. So I think, to your point, I think you're absolutely right. Now that we know that can be done, I imagine in the future we will see more of that. But
I looked at that maneuver, if I can just, as more of a last ditch. This is our last, almost like to use real life analogy, like the Japanese did at the end of World War II, of turning battleships into kamikazes, where not just dropping planes in, they're just ramming whole ships, ramming submarines. I kind of saw it as that of this is our last ditch effort. We've thrown everything we can at them. This is the last thing we have to try.
And the amount of self-sacrifice. I mean, you very easily could have programmed the ship or put a droid in that seat and hopped on one of the escaping shuttles. Holdo sat in that seat, guided it, and engaged the hyperdrive. So to your point, John Mark, it's a true sacrifice of technology, sacrifice of self for the last remaining folks trying to get
and that could be a reason why it hasn't been used before. I mean,
it's pretty pricey.
Ships of that size probably aren't cheap.
No,
it wouldn't need to be that size, though. I see your point there, guys. But I hadn't considered. That's not the first time you've said something I never thought of before either, Garrett.
Well, and Kevin, I mean, because you take a look at the Acolyte. I mean, look at what happens to how do they describe Brandok in what was it the episode 6 or whatever, where they do that rehash of the memory. Like they talk about how Brandok was hit by some light speed some kind of event that was a cataclysmic event for the planet. It wrecked it for being for holding life, and somehow life returned, and which is fine. I mean, that's great, but it's like if that happened hundreds of years ago, given especially like Palpatine and his propensity for co-opting technologies and co-opting battle strategies and everything else in between, why wasn't this something that he would have studied and been like, I'm sure we could build a modular weapon, and especially in an established fictional universe where you have programmable technology to do whatever your bidding is. I mean, that's essentially what droids are, and droids exist for thousands of years. You wouldn't even have to have something the size of a starship. I mean, if you've ever seen the pictures of like what happens when a piece of metal flies into a panel from the International Space Station, that piece of metal is orbiting around the Earth. It's a piece of junk floating around the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour, going in the opposite direction of the ISS, going at the same velocity or faster. And when the two collide, it is cataclysmic damage. And we're talking about something about the same size as a bottle cap. All you need is something with enough velocity and in the right trajectory, programmable. And I mean, we're getting off topic, but the point was talking about internal logic, internal rules. But yeah.
Well, actually, that brings up another wonderful thing I think that is needed for Star Wars stories is to create the conversations outside of the stories. I think it'd be one thing to have the makers put something up on screen, whether it's television screen, iPad, or the large silver screen that we all go to every once and again. It's the stories that we share afterwards. Did you see that thing? What about that costume? How about that creature that looked like it was from Captain EO?
How could that have worked?
How did that have worked? Like, why didn't how come? What's the connection between this part of the story and that book that came out 10 months ago or whatever?
Why
so there has to
be Geordi LaForge visor and has regular eyes.
So how can we connect all of these different pieces? And even from the original trilogy, there was that desire to have these connected pieces, and George even went further than that and worked with people to get them in our homes, so we could create those little 3 3/4 inch figures and have 1.5 million stories in our dining room and backyard and on the bus.
Indeed.
Well said.
Indeed. All right.
I mean, is it fair to say that some of you have a 1 or 2 action figures, whether it's Lego variety or
I adapted other figures because Star Wars figures were expensive at the time, but I do have a solid collection somewhere.
Do we lose Brian again?
Only briefly.
Oh.
He might be picking
my favorite.
Nice. That looks
I
like
got
the original one from the 70s.
Yep, I sent away proofs of purchase for a little old lady action figure.
Complete with walking stick.
Oh, for sure. My walking stick is hanging on the wall back there. Oh, I love that.
That's fantastic.
All the Lego Star Wars, yeah.
I have a fancy box of Star Wars soaps.
Ooh.
the Sasquatch or whatever they are.
Yeah, the
I
Dr.
had that
Squatch.
too. I had that too. Had I actually used mine.
I haven't used them yet. I have like 3 other bars I still need to use.
I'm pretty pleased with this bear brick I just got from Japan a little while ago.
Ooh,
Oh, that's fun.
fun.
I'll take your whole night from me showing you Palpatine collectibles, Ken.
See, show and tell is so fantastic. Yeah,
Nice.
and it's. I think.
Ken, this is one half of the Unity lightsaber my ex-wife and I used for our wedding.
Oh, that is wonderful. One of the things that really gets me excited about Star Wars fans is that many of them have fun things within reach. Whether it's a
sure.
comic book that they love, a lightsaber that they swing around the front yard, or whatever.
Yes.
Because these stories that we watch on screen, they're one thing. It's another thing to come home and talk with your friend. That's awesome. Talk with your friends about it, or play show and tell or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Have any of you ever gone out of your way to go someplace to see someone who is a maker or a costumer or whatever?
I have a funny story because I had an opportunity to do this a couple years ago. The cast of Clone Wars was doing their tour. It was I think it was the 25th anniversary.
So just D. Bradley Baker then.
Yeah, basically, yeah. No, it
And
was
James Earl Taylor, just 2 people.
It was D. Bradley Baker, James Arnold Taylor,
Tom Kenny, isn't he in there?
No, I don't think Tom Kenny was with him. What's his
Ashley?
name? Ashley Eckstein and Matt Lanter.
Okay.
And I live in the Midwest, and they were going to be in Indianapolis for Indiana Comic-Con. And me and my daughter were going to go there. We got tickets. And we were so excited because we were going to go. We weren't going to be able to get the autograph or anything like that. It was just too expensive. But we were going to go get for the panel. We saw what the panel was. We did not take in consideration the time change of going from Illinois into Indiana, going from Central to Eastern time. So the minute we got over, I saw the time thing. I saw the clock go up. I'm like, we missed it by an hour
for
the panel. But we still had a fun time. Lily, my daughter, has a little Darth Vader dress. It's all black with the panel with a mask. I got a bunch of pictures taken with the 501st. Yeah. With a couple of, in fact, one of them I asked, of course, we were polite. We asked if we could take a picture, and it was with a scout trooper. And of course, the first thing it says is, well, yeah, she's the boss.
That's good. John Mark, it is a shame. Yeah, it's a shame that you missed Ashley because we were even had like questions planned we're gonna ask when we got up there, and yeah, it was just so. I'm sure we'll get a chance again sometime. Ken, I met Ashley at Celebration 19. I was just in line to pick up my badge, and I heard off to my left, "I'm here to pick up my badge." And I thought, that sounds like Ahsoka. Oh, that is Ahsoka. And
go ahead. I still say if we ever have a chance to go to a con together, is to have you dressed up like Palpatine, taking a picture with Matt, and have me dressed up like Obi-Wan and be really Anakin. Really.
I like to sneak up behind Ahsoka cosplayers, and Ken, I'll come up behind him. I move pretty quick for an old guy, and in the cloaks, I just kind of swoop up behind him, and I've waited for this moment for a long time, my little orange friend. It's always a big hit with the Ahsokas, or they run. Yeah.
So here's my recommendation for those conventions. Even if you've decided you're not going to do the autograph, you've decided you're not going to do the photograph, still get in line. Still take the time to ask the question that you couldn't ask in the panel to offer that level of thanks, that appreciation, especially if you're showing up in some sort of a costume, because 9 times out of 10, the celebrity, especially the ones with when kids are involved, they will more than likely ask to get a picture with them, and so it becomes one of these moments that can't be replaced, that can't be replicated. So
I got this picture done with McDiarmid. That's my Darth Vader suit. It's printed with little Darth Vaders all over it. And I practiced my line. I didn't want to fanboy at him, but I said, "Mr. McDiarmid, it's such a privilege to meet you. I love your work." And he clapped me on the back and he said, "Don't you look dashing?" And I just all chill. He thinks I dressed up. Do you like my tie?
See, unfortunately for our experience with Ian, is they did a little post-it note with all of our names on it, and he still wrote one of our names wrong.
Well, see what you got to
the
do
best
there
laid plan.
I pre-printed the inscription.
But it was, it's things like that. 'Cause it's not as if Ashley's in your neighborhood every weekend or whatever. So
in the 4
spend
minutes
the time
I had
in
a
line and say
conversation with her at the convention. 4 minutes I'm talking to her, just like, "Thanks for what you do." My daughter was 2 at the time. I said, "I can't wait to introduce her." And she said, "Do you know your way around the venue? Have you been here before?" Like, she's gonna show me where the snack machines are. Like, "No, I'm okay, thanks, but I could use an Uber home."
Yeah, because I have yet to meet any Star Wars maker who doesn't invest that time connecting with that person right in front of them, whether buying a picture or buying an autograph or not. Everyone from Ian McDiarmid, the most evil guy in the galaxy, to Ashley and Sam Witwer and so on.
I would like to meet Sam Witwer. He plays one of my favorite characters.
I bumped into him in Orlando, and he's just walking around. Voice actors, you have a lot of freedom. So he just strolled by me. I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Witwer." And he said, "Oh, call me Sam." "Oh, okay." Thank you so much. You recontextualized Darth Maul, and he was such an underserved character in the films, and you brought so much to the character. I said, I feel like a dork asking, "Is there any way you could say something for me?" And he said, "What do you want me to say?" I was like, "Just anything you feel comfortable." He's like, "Hey, I'm Sam. Nice to meet you." All right, you got me on that one.
Witwer did actually on one occasion voice Palpatine.
I did not tell McDiarmid that I've been playing that role longer than he has, because I went as Palpatine for Halloween in 1980.
Everybody cosplayed him from the Dragon movie. He was in. Was it Dragonheart? Was that the one he was in?
No, Dragonheart was
David Thewlis and Sean Connery. Yeah. What I would like to do is cosplay him as the butler from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which I could do a pre-evil Palpatine. Every year it gets easier. And I love this. I periodically I get what I call an insult disguised as a compliment. I'll tell people I do cosplay, and they'll say, "Oh, well, who do you dress as?" I say Palpatine, and more times than I can count, they look at me and they say, "Yeah, I can see that." Hey, that's not very nice, but thank you.
So I'm old and crouchy? Is that what you say?
Yeah, I'm only 50. He was 88. But fair enough. I'll take it. It's the nose, I think.
Yeah, so far all the real cosplaying I do is got a helmet on, so you can't tell it's me.
That's smart. That's smart. Every year it gets easier.
All right. Well, this has been a fun discussion. It's gotten off topic a few times, but that's what we do here. As
part of our charm, don't mess it up.
Yeah, it's our gimmick. Yeah. As we wrap things up here today, Ken, why don't you tell everyone out there where they can find you out on the interwebs?
Yeah, sure thing. So Wednesday nights, typically around 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, I'm on the Inflatable Falcon with Mike Hinton and John Scalise. I'm also on the Rambling Star Wars Fan. That's my solo podcast. And then the other show that I co-host is Bounty Hunting Across the Galaxy with Todd and Ken. And you can find all three of those on iTunes or wherever else you listen to podcasts.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Well, Garrett, what about you? Where can people find you out there?
Well, you guys can find me right here. For those of you watching on the screen, you can find me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my books, The Archives of a Sync Ran. There's 5 in the ongoing fantasy series. Working on book 6, but that's kind of on hiatus at the moment. I'm working on some other projects. But I also talk about my show on YouTube, The Right Way, where we talk book recs, author interviews, and we talk creative writing tips. In fact, one of the guests that I had for my 150th episode was Tim Leben, who worked on some of the Star Wars content. He had one of the first books out in the Old Republic series. So you can find that out. I can't remember what the title of it is, but he was a fun guest to have on there. So yeah, check it out on YouTube. New episodes for season 7 start airing on October 12th.
You just made my podcast list bigger. Thank you so much.
All right, and Brian, what about you? Where can people find you at?
I and my colleagues post on the Sith Library and Archives a well-curated collection of Sith culture, art, and humor on the Facebooks out there at the Sith Library and Archives. Come on by and see us. I post as Darth Carosis, which, as I am fond of saying, is the only thing I ever wrote in 8th grade that I still like.
All right. As for us right here, if you want to get a hold of us, warofthestars1@gmail.com. Our Instagram is @_of_the_Star Wars 1. That's a lot of ones and underscores. That is our Instagram. X is @warofthestars1. YouTube, you can find us at SW Child, where you can find our other show, my other show, Star Wars Through the Eyes of a Child, where myself and my daughter have been going through the Clone Wars animated series in chronological order and watching it together and discussing the morals, messages behind the show and what we thought of the shows of each episode. It's a lot of fun, and it's fun sharing Star Wars with my daughter like that. Also, if you want to support the show, Ko-fi.com / War of the Stars. You can give us basically buy us a cup of coffee there, or you can buy this cool merch, this shirt, which is fading already, at spreadshirt.com / shop / war -of -the -stars very dashing. I still want to make a Dash Rendar joke there. I just haven't figured out how to do that yet. For those of you who are old enough to remember who Dash Rendar is, he's the, as I like to say, he is the Temu version of Han Solo.
Or the Wish version.
The Wish version of, the Wish version of Han Solo. Where was it? Oh, yes. Yeah, you can.
Train of thought.
You.
It's not just veering, it's derailing at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I think that about. Oh, also, we are a part of Geek News Now, the Geek News Now network. Go to on YouTube. Just go to Geek News Now official on YouTube, or search Geek News Now on Spotify. You can find us there. You can find us where pretty much all other places where podcasts are found. Check out the other shows that are part of that network. A lot of really good shows, a lot of really good people there. So give them a listen and check them out. That will about do it for us. Thank you for watching. And as always, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.